Yeah, it's just kind of a free-for-all. Like at the beginning, I'll read like a synopsis for this one. I'm just gonna read the back of my VHS.
The back of this VHS right here.
Oh shit!
Do you also have the back of the sequel VHS, The Secret of Treasure Mountain?
I do. It's downstairs. I was gonna watch that one because that one I haven't watched in quite a while.
It's the widow Jenkins. She fell down again.
Scott, Pete, Eldon, and Lanny share fun and friendship as the Buttercream Gang in the small town of Elk Ridge. The group is temporarily separated when Pete moves to Chicago for the school year and falls under the influence of a local gang. When he returns to Elk Lodge unexpectedly, his friends notice he has changed. As Pete struggles, old friendships are challenged and the boys learn the true meaning of unconditional love. I don't know if that's what we're going to learn on this episode of I Love This Movie, but we'll find out. And on this episode, we are joined by the infamous Binge Movies. Jason from Binge Movies. How the hell are you?
Infamous is a thing.
It is.
I wasn't expecting that. I'm just a humble representative of Binge Movies. Yeah, I'm just Jason. I'm just an employee.
Yeah.
I am not the brand. I am just a man I'm an avatar, really. I'm a vessel for Binge Movies. Yeah.
Yeah, you're just like you're a hologram. We're not even seeing you right now.
that might not be far from the truth. Yes. I'm not bound to the strictures of space and time like the rest of folks. The folks at the Not Walt Disney Corporation have seen to it that I surpass the limits of mortal man. How else will I have time to rank and review all of these movies on Binge Movies?
Exactly.
And run a video store. God.
You have so much on your plate.
My goal, Lindsay, is to not get you kicked off of YouTube because I'm used to being able to say whatever I want.
Say whatever you want. We'll see how it goes. If I need to bleep something, I'll bleep something. I usually don't, but we'll find out.
We got to get you that button. We got to get you that play button.
Yeah, that'd be nice.
Yeah, but now that an infamous person has been on your podcast,
I know.
It may not
moving up in the world.
I was going to say you're moving down the world. It may not happen now. They've barred me from this platform. So
oh my goodness.
Here we go.
Well, we've done some collaborations before. We talked about the Rambo movies. We talked about Flight of the Navigator. We ranked all the Predator movies except the most recent release, Prey.
Correct.
And I asked you to come on my channel, and you're like, under one condition.
It's true.
As long as we talk about the Buttercream Gang, because I think it was the first time we did anything, we discovered that we both love the Buttercream Gang.
Yeah. So it's always interesting, right? When you do a collaboration with another content creator. I hate all those terms.
Me too.
You like some people you just jive with, and then some people it's like it's a good whatever, but you don't seem to have that kind of personal connection of like, oh, if we weren't separated by 500 miles,
right?
I think we'd be buddies.
Yeah, definitely.
And you were one of those people that an algorithm said, look at this person's channel, and I said, oh, she's pretty good at what she does. I should have her on the podcast. You came on. I think we talked for like an hour and a half before we even started the episode.
Yeah, it was crazy.
we found all of these things in common, and it was namely the Buttercream Gang. And it's the 30th anniversary of the feature films for families edition of the Buttercream Gang.
It's crazy.
And this is my original copy from my childhood. I know you've got a copy sitting right there by your side.
Yes,
Oh, you got an updated version.
I do.
Whoa.
I got the
old
hand-drawn cover. Oh my goodness. Crazy.
Wow. So
yeah, I think mine's a 1996 release or something.
Wow.
Like that.
Wow. Well, no, this is the 1991 Feature Films for Families video cassette, not for resale.
Goodness.
That somebody directly marketed to my mother.
Oh my!
And we could talk about that because I think
yeah.
as interesting as the movie is, and I hadn't seen it in a long time. I watched it again in preparation for the great Lindsay Washburn, the queen of VHS, might I say. and a good buddy, and I revisited it, and I'm surprised by certain things in this movie.
Yes.
And some of it will be funny, and some of it I think will be surprising. I think I might surprise you with what I have to say. And then in so doing, I've always been fascinated by this company.
Yeah.
I've always been fascinated because, and I brought it up to you because we're both VHS people.
Yeah.
And I was like, do you remember the company first? And we talked about it. Because I don't know if they were like predominantly targeting people in the Midwest. We're both Midwesterners.
Yeah.
They were like just basically scared white, like quasi-Christian people. Like, we want to give you, because if you remember, the 90s was all about like family.
Yes, very much so. And
the family channel.
How scary the fucking city is.
Yes. How scary those minorities are in the big city with their gangs and their drugs.
Yes.
And their whatnot. Yeah. And so this company is okay. How deep do you want to go, Lindsay? Because we can
go as deep as it goes.
Okay, so you know this as well as I know this, right? When the home video market exploded in the early 80s, and the real explosion where it's like by the late 80s, pretty much everybody had a VCR in the United States, right?
And everybody was making their own VHSs.
That's where I was going with it, right? Because you saw all of these kind of fly-by-night companies that were stepping in, and they were either doing one of two things, right? They were either kind of trying to be Roger Corman-esque and produce movies on the cheap, and sell them to a distributor who would then sell them to video stores, right? Or they were just the distributors who were going around buying a bunch of movies. Feature films for families started off as predominantly a distribution company. If I'm not mistaken, they distributed public domain films, which was a thing, if you remember, like back in the day. You'd be like at a Walmart, and there'd just be a VHS tape of like the most random
something from the mid 30s.
Yes.
Some
that
gangster
you've never
film.
heard of. Yeah, you've never heard of, in the most generic sleeve imaginable. And it would be dirt cheap, and you're like, okay, whatever. Because they didn't have to pay anything for the movie. They just had to pay the cost of kind of manufacturing the sleeves and putting it on a tape and shipping it off. And as long as they could sell it to a gullible VHS store, mom and pop VHS stores, and for those who are young, who may not know, who are subscribers of Lindsay Washburn, the video store was the YouTube of the 80s. If you couldn't get into a video store, nobody was going to see your stuff.
No,
right?
Not at all.
The big screen was mainstream media, and the video store had those things, right? It had corporate mainstream media, obviously, but it was also the heyday of kind of DIY shot on shitty-o movies. And if you could just get a couple of people in the woods, maybe some boobs,
some fake blood,
get a buddy into a suit, into a bad alien suit, shoot it. You could either make a Zat or a Rambo,
Night Beast, something like that,
or Things, or whatever, or the Rambo ripoff,
Deadly Prey,
yes, which would So you could do that, and it was I don't want to say it was easy, but the bar got lowered for making movies.
Very much so, as long as you had a cool cover.
Bingo. So what really took off during that time was genre stuff: horror, porno,
sci-fi,
action schlock, and family movies. Family movies were shot on the cheap with all unknown actors, and these folks seem to just go around and buy up the rights to any movie made by Mormons or evangelicals in Salt Lake City, and then just distribute them directly via telemarketing, door-to-door sales, mailers. And their business model was sort of like that Columbia, I think it was like the Columbia
House,
where it's like, hey, we'll send you 4 or 5 or whatever it was, free movies, just pay shipping. And then for X amount a month from here on out, you'll get one family movie a month that's like safe for your family.
Mhm.
You know, it's not like the grotesqueries of mainstream
No, it's
media.
it's not dirty Hollywood.
Right. And so I think we got the Buttercream Gang in that first batch.
Yeah.
And if I'm not mistaken, at least this is my perception, I think Buttercream Gang and its sequel, the Buttercream Gang in The Secrets of Treasure Mountain. Or Secret of Treasure Mountain. I think those are their two best sellers. And then there's a one anomaly which you and I talked about, which is somehow, some way, this guy with this fly-by-night business in Salt Lake City, got the rights to Space Camp.
Yeah.
He got the home video distribution rights for Space Camp.
Yeah, insane. Yeah, because we watched that so many times during like summer camp and stuff.
Yeah,
it's raining out. It's raining outside. We're watching Space Camp.
We're watching Space Camp. Yeah. And that was the context for me for the Buttercream Gang too. I not only had it at home, but any sort of camp experience I had or daycare type situation. If it rained, this is what was put on amongst and Space Camp. And I actually have a whole sleeve, like a whole tray of VHS tapes that's nothing but feature films for families.
Oh my God.
So maybe what I'll do is I'll look at the label, and every time a 30th or 40th anniversary comes up, I'll appear back on your YouTube channel.
Oh yeah, definitely. Well, it had to have been their most produced one, because every time I go out looking for VHS in the wild, I always find a copy of the Buttercream Gang every single time. Doesn't matter where I go, where I am, I can't get away from it.
I think there were a lot of scared white people in the 90s who were convinced that their kids were going to join minority gangs and steal shoelaces from Five and Dime
and break shit down by the railroad tracks
and steal the seats of toddlers off of their seesaws. That's about as violent. That's actually not true, because what's interesting about this movie is when Pete comes back from Chicago, and I'm probably jumping ahead, when he comes back from Chicago, he does all of these things which are at best kind of nuisances. Like it's just sort of like asshole behavior.
He's a dick.
Yeah. And then he does a gangland stomp and just beats the living shit out of a child.
Yeah.
And that kid is beat. That kid, when Scott or Scotty, when he reemerges after his beatdown, that kid is they fucked that kid up.
Black eye, like, bloody nose.
Oh, scrapes and bruises
everywhere.
And you're just like, this movie just really escalated. Like 2/3 of the way through it. 2/3 of the way through this movie.
Oh my God.
All of a sudden, like, Pete is kind of like a real gang guy.
Yeah.
All of a sudden.
Well, he's selling drugs, and then some guy's accosting his grandfather. Like, did he have pantyhose on his head?
Yes, he did. Yeah. He hired a guy to help him, to kidnap him.
Yeah, so he could go back to Chicago.
So that he could steal his grandpa's gold doubloons to get his ass back to Chicago.
Okay.
There's a lot to talk about.
There is. Movie. So let's set it up a little bit. We're introduced to the picturesque, very white, small town of Elk Ridge.
Yes.
In Utah. Very beautiful scenery.
No, wait. Okay, so there's my first question, Lindsay. Where the hell is this place supposed to be? We know it's Utah because there's giant ass mountains. And as two Midwesterners, you don't have giant ass mountains on either side of your cornfields.
No.
But this has lush cornfields. It seems to me it's supposed to be like rural Illinois.
Yeah.
Right? And then the next biggest city is Chicago.
Chicago, yeah.
But it's very, very clearly Salt Lake City.
Yes, very much so.
Or somewhere out there. Park
giant
City.
Mountains.
Yeah, they never address it. I was like, wait a minute, this isn't rural. I mean, it's rural, but it's not like Midwest America.
No, not at all. Not at all. But we're introduced to this picturesque small town. And in this small town, there's this legacy of the Buttercreamers. They call themselves that, the Buttercreamers.
I'm a Buttercreamer, right?
Yeah, you know it.
It's the Buttercream Gang, and they're not your typical gang. They do good stuff for people in town and the community, and it's been going on since like the 30s.
Yeah.
Because they have the discussion with the shop owner. He's like, yeah, I was an original, or my brother or father was an original buttercreamer, because it started that like several of the men in the town got murdered or something.
I think it was First World War. They all went off to war.
That's what it was.
They were killed.
Yes.
So all was left was teen boys
to take care of the widows.
To take care of the widows by churning their butter. And the more we say it, the worse it sounds, Lindsay. The more we talk, like, none of these are euphemisms. We're not meaning this in some kind of a.
The minister asked some of the teenage boys, including my great-grandfather, to help the widows by churning their butter. It was hard work, you know.
Okay, can we have an aside here?
Yes.
Isn't part of the charm of this movie that it is such a it's a very pure, idealistic, naive film.
Very naive, yes. And
it
our
has a
filthy, disgusting minds have perverted it into something else.
It like, even as a kid, I remember thinking it sounded very sexual.
Very much so.
Yeah, right. They're like, it's okay. It's one thing to be called the Buttercream Gang, and then you get the explanations. Like, okay, it makes sense.
Yeah.
But it's when they call themselves Buttercreamers. And then the female versions are the Buttercreamettes.
Yeah.
Very funny.
And you're just sort of like, come on now.
Oh, what?
Yeah, come on.
Oh my goodness. But they do a lot of stuff. They help people. They mow the lawn. Yeah. Every time the Widow Jenkins falls.
The Widow Jenkins.
Because that's how so we open the movie.
Yes.
And Scott, who is the leader currently of the Buttercream Gang, he's moving to Chicago because his aunt needs help. She lives there. She's got 2 small children, and he lives with his grandpa. His parents are gone.
They've died, yes.
They've died. And so he heads off to Chicago. So he leaves Scotty in charge of the Buttercream Gang.
I got to pause you again.
Yeah.
This time as an adult, I'm like, wait a minute. Pete is like a high school kid, right? He's like the last. He's like the last generation of Buttercreamers.
He's like guiding the younger ones to take over for him. Yeah.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
But his aunt is like, I can't raise these kids. So 17-year-old orphan, come here and raise my kids for me.
Yeah.
And like, honestly, like this time around, I was like, okay, yeah, Pete's a dick, yes, but he kind of has a point.
He does. Yeah.
He's like, my parents are dead. His grandpa is very elderly, very frail.
Yes.
Cannot take care of him. Can't do anything for him.
They don't have a lot of money. They're very, very poor.
He's just shipped off seemingly against his will from this idealistic town to an impoverished area of Chicago, to the mean streets of Chicago, to raise 2 children for his aunt who has destroyed her life in some off-screen way. And I'm like, and then like everybody's like, oh well, how dare you, Pete? Like, and like the aunt sucks.
She does.
To the point that at one point, like, he's like keeping it together. He's like taking care of the kids. He's doing good in school, and he's keeping in touch with the friends back home. And his aunt says something to the effect of like, well, Pete, if your parents weren't dead, I'm sure they'd be proud of you.
Hey, Pete, that's great. You know, if your parents were alive, I think they'd be so proud of you.
Yeah.
And I'm like,
I was just like, what the fuck, lady?
What? Like, show a little compassion.
A little bit.
Yeah. She drives him into the gang life.
I think
he did not choose the thug life. The thug life chose him. Pete's a victim.
He is a victim.
He really is. Yeah. Yeah.
Oh my goodness. But while Pete is gone, Pete and Scott are exchanging letters back and forth.
Yep.
Kind of just keeping up with each other. And also during this time, we have to talk about the Widow Jenkins.
Yes.
Really quick.
Yes.
Because this happens before Scott comes back.
Yes.
Evidently, the Widow Jenkins just can't keep herself upright.
No.
For any reason. But they're on the baseball field. All the Buttercreamers, they're on the baseball team.
Yes, because this movie has every aspect of every
Yes.
children's film you've ever seen from this era. They've got the
Yes.
big game, the baseball team,
The dance, the school dance.
the school dance, the boys discovering girls don't have cooties.
Yep.
The nerd girl with glasses who gets a makeover. Like it has everything in it.
Everything.
Including multiple references to the Life Alert commercial, which is the basis for this entire plot point of the Widow Jenkins. And is like, if you're thinking that, well, maybe it's just a coincidence that these two things coexisted, the movie flat out quotes the commercial.
Yes.
And they laugh their asses off about how funny that commercial is, which is actually true. And if you were 8 years old in 1991,
funniest shit ever.
Peak comedy was that lady. Hell, I've fallen and I can't get up.
I've fallen and I can't get up.
Everybody in the world thought that was the funniest thing ever for like 2 years. It was a meme that moved
before the internet. Yes.
Yeah, at the speed
oh my goodness.
of rotary phone. Yeah.
And so the one of those smaller girls in town comes and gets the Buttercreamers and is like, the Widow Jenkins fell again.
Scott! Scott! What? What's the matter? It's the Widow Jenkins! She fell down again!
So instead of alerting an adult or calling the police
or volunteer firefighters,
firefighters, they pass a lot of people on their way, and it takes them like 20 minutes.
Oh, it's clear across town.
It's clear across town.
We see their journey to get to her house. We're like,
it's like it's taking forever. They're going through fields and down back roads and alleyways and. So they finally get there and the door's locked. So they have to rig like this rope. And then they go spend like 15 more minutes searching for rope in the garage.
Yes, correct.
Meanwhile, they've seen her feet through the window.
Which is hilarious.
Guys, she fell down in the dining room. Is she okay? I don't know. I saw her feet moving.
And they're like, is she okay? And he says, I don't know. Her feet were moving. And I'm just like, you don't know if she's hit her head or had a stroke.
Yeah,
while you're out there
coma.
While you're out there looking for rope in the garage, her brain's in there just swelling away.
Wow. I don't want to be dark, but you've gone there, Lindsay.
But I'm just like,
one of these times, the Buttercreamers are going to get called to Widow Jenkins' house. And they're going to find her bloated corpse, and she will have been there for 2 or 3 days.
Exactly.
And you have 3 small children who are going to be horrifically traumatized the rest of their life. And this town gives no F's about it.
No, it doesn't. No.
The Buttercream Gang is being exploited by the adults of this town.
It's free labor.
Free labor. And they do all the good deeds that all the adults can be as nonchalant about horrific things as possible, and we'll get to perhaps the most nonchalant dad in the history of children's entertainment.
Oh my god.
Put a pin in that. We're coming back to
We are coming back to that.
Yeah.
Kind of late tonight, aren't you?
Yeah, well, Mrs. Jenkins fell down again.
Yeah, Regina told me.
They're writing letters back and forth, keeping in touch at first, and we get a little montage action of just the year passing.
Yep.
It snows, it's wintertime, but I forgot to turn my phone on silent. Oops. But after a while, Scott stops responding because he's met some new friends.
Pete stops responding because Pete's the older one. Scott is
Pete. Yes.
Yes.
Pete stops responding because he's found some new friends.
Yeah.
Is it the Lids? Is that what they call themselves?
I have no idea. Because when he's doing it's like a montage, he's like, hey, Scotty, I found some new friends here. They're kind of like the gang back home, and we call ourselves and it kind of trails off. And I don't know.
Fades out. It's like the Lids or the Lads. or something. I have no idea.
I met some neighbor kids. We mostly just hang out at the video arcade. I'm learning a lot about Chicago, even though it's not like the fun we had, but they're okay. They call themselves the Legs. They call themselves the Legs. They call themselves the Legs.
So he gets involved in gangs, and his grades go in the toilet. He's not going to school. He's getting in trouble. The cops are chasing him. All sorts of shit.
He starts dressing like a cholo.
Oh my God.
With no explanation.
None. Well, so we fast forward, and his aunt kicks him out, essentially. She sends him back because she can't.
Well, and her explanation is, I didn't bring you here. She says, she's got a couple of great lines. One of her lines is, ever since you got arrested, you've been blaming everybody else for your problems.
Yeah.
And that's one. And then two, she says, I didn't bring you here to get into a gang. I brought you here to try to raise your cousins or something like that.
Yeah, I brought you here to be a good role model for my children.
That is too much for a 16, 17-year-old kid to bear. Why? Like, I brought you here to be the father of my children. Like,
Look, I asked you to live with us because I thought you'd be a good example for my children.
that's not his role. He
Not
needs
at
a
all.
father. He needs a dad
Exactly.
and a mom. You know, if you're going to take him in, it's because he needs you, not the other way around, lady.
Exactly.
Stupid.
Exactly. And it all culminates with some disastrous effects.
It really does. Yeah.
It does.
Yeah.
So she kicks him out and sends him back, and Scott walks in like after a baseball game or something, and Pete is there in his kitchen sitting there.
Well, they go to his they get word that he's coming back.
Okay.
And so they go over to Pete's grandpa's house.
Okay.
Because they had a real weird interaction with his grandpa at the gas station.
Yeah.
And they're like, when's Pete coming back? He's like, I can't talk now, kids.
Well, hi, boys.
Hey, did you hear we made the championship?
That's what I hear. Congratulations.
Thanks. Do you know when Pete's getting back?
I'm sorry, boys. I can't talk now. I'm late. I'll see you later and we'll talk more. Bye.
And he just disappears.
Yeah.
And so they're like, well, maybe Pete's back already. Let's go over there. And grandpa was acting weird. Let's make sure he's okay. They go over, and then like they hear him inside. He's like, come on in, guys.
Mm-hmm.
And then he is sitting exceptionally menacingly.
Hey guys, come on back. Long time no see.
What happened to you?
What, you mean the threads? Pretty cool, huh? You like them?
In his own kitchen, like at a dinette set, like a little table, and he's just eating peanut butter out of the jar like a serial killer. And here's the thing, right? Because eventually, like, he goes with him to the store after he's like, oh, let's all go get some treats. I'm buying. Let's go to the store. Let's go to Mr. Graff's. And he goes to Mr. Graff. He's like, hey, Mr. Graff, you remember me? It's been like 9 months to a year.
If that, yeah.
If that.
Mm-hmm.
Because he left at the end of summer.
It's been just over a year.
Yeah, and he's coming back at the start of the next summer, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because he got so because we see the passage of time in winter and spring and whatever. Why would nobody in this town remember him? Why does he assume that nobody in this town remembers him? And why do they kind of act like they don't remember him?
Because he's changed so much physically. That's why.
He put a bandana on and some Dickies. That's all this guy's done, right? And here, like, the thing I've always loved about this is the guy that plays Pete, who's actually like had a little bit of a character actor career in the 90s. He is like clearly not from wherever they got the rest of these kids. So even in the early scenes when he's supposed to be like the good guy, like raw, squeaky clean, small town bumpkin role model, he still kind of has like a borderline Brooklyn accent.
A little bit.
And he's like, yeah, hey, Scotty, like Michael Jordan, I'm going to Chicago. Hey.
Lighten up. All right? Look at me. Buttercreamers isn't just about helping people out or whatever.
And so then, like, when he leans into it even further,
Oh my God.
it just kind of makes more sense because he just kind of has a scumbag face.
A little bit. He does.
Yeah,
he does.
Yeah.
But it's just so funny. He comes back after being gone for about a year, and he looks different and he sounds different. I mean, he sounds like he's in the movie Carlito's Way or something when he comes back.
All right, 10 minutes. I promise your mother we'll be there for dinner.
He's a little mafioso.
He is.
Yeah,
He
he's
is
a
a little bit.
Godfather-esque.
Oh my God.
He said, there's two types of people in your life, Scott. Your friends and your enemies. And then he beats the living shit
out of him.
Out of his child, a child who is his best friend.
I don't know. I just want to say, don't you ever talk to me that way again. Do you understand? Look at me. Don't ever talk to me that way again, and don't you ever, ever, ever threaten me again. No! Take him in there.
Jesus Christ.
In this clean, quasi-Christian film for the family.
Yeah. It's fucking crazy. And so they go to, like you said before, they go to, is it Gruff's?
Graff's. Yep,
Graff's,
Mr. Graff's.
That's what Mr. Graff's, like, general store. And Scott sees Pete. He kind of thinks he stole something. He's not 100% sure. He's like, I didn't see him steal anything, but I didn't see him pay for anything either. So he's right away, he's picking up that his friend is not exactly the same.
And we get another creep out factor. So he's so torn, his conscience is so pricked by this that he doesn't eat the snacks because he's like, this isn't right.
What was the snack? At first I thought it was like an ice cream bar, but then he hands it to his dad like 6 hours later and it didn't melt.
One for you, got one for you, Scotty, one for you.
Dad, I think he stole the treats he gave Eldon, Lanny, and me from Mr. Graff's store.
I have no idea. I have no idea. Yeah, you're right. It looks like a bar. And then he like pulls it out of his like jacket and he's like at a porch. It's the middle of summer. He's like, Dad, I don't think Pete paid for this. Yeah. And they were introduced to Mr. Nonchalant, who is the father, right?
Yes.
And the first time we introduced him, I'm like, oh, okay. Because he's like, here's what he says. And this is where the movie took me by surprise, the Buttercream Gang. He's like, well, did you see Pete steal? Mm-hmm. And he's like, well, no, but I didn't see him pay for it either, like you said. And he's like, well, if you didn't see him do it, you can't just assume that he stole, son. Mm. And he's like, oh, okay, I guess. But he's just acted different. He's like, why is he acting different? He's like, I don't know. He dresses different. He talks different. He's like, well, just because he dresses different, just because he dresses like kids do in the city, doesn't mean he's bad.
No.
I was stunned that was in this movie.
Yeah.
Because I thought for sure this movie's going to be like, well, he probably is bad because he dresses like
he's a hoodlum.
Ethnic stereotype now. Yeah. So, but instead the dad's whole perspective is, you can't really judge people just because they come from a big city or they dress different than you do. Doesn't mean they're a bad person.
No.
And he's like, you're just going to have to watch and see, judge him by his behavior, not his appearance.
Exactly.
So before you go accusing him, make sure you know the truth. You ought to ask him about it.
And then he drops the line. I'm like, okay, I'm with the movie. And he drops the line. He's like, and if he is in a gang, son, you're gonna have to be careful because those guys can be pretty dangerous. And then that's all the advice his father gives him.
Yeah.
Hey, if your childhood best friend is actually now a bloodthirsty gang guy, better watch out. Like his dad.
They're dangerous.
One more thing. Real gangs are real dangerous. So if you think Pete was in a gang, be careful.
No interest whatsoever in protecting his son.
No. Be careful.
Be careful because he's probably gonna kick your ass. And that was it. That's all the advice his father gives him.
I'm gonna go back to working on my Model T.
Yeah. And so then our boy Scott goes up to his bedroom to get out of his little league shit. And he flicks on his desk light and is laying across his bed like James Spader in the New Kids.
Yes. Oh my God.
What's up, man?
With like a fucking knife and an apple or some shit. He's like, his eyes are completely empty. He's like, hey, Scotty. Mm-hmm.
Just full American Psycho mode.
Total psycho shit.
Mm-hmm.
He's like, oh, Pete, what are you doing here? He's like, I thought you said we were going to hang out later, Scotty. You never showed up. It's like, what the hell?
Right.
Brought your bike back. It's a great bike. Wish I could have forked one.
And then he's like, and then immediately his dad just warned him, right?
Mm-hmm.
Immediately he's like, "Hey Pete, did you steal that stuff?" And Pete's like, "Yeah, I stole it, Scott."
Yeah, I fucking stole it. What are you gonna do?
Yeah. He's like, "I feel pretty bad about it." He's like, "Once I got to Chicago, I started to get some bad habits." And then he says something that sounds absolutely psychotic. He goes, "But being here, I think it's helping me."
Oh my
And it's like, what? Like total manipulator.
Oh, big time.
Sociopath. Like, oh yeah, I'm a lost soul now. But I think being back around you guys is like helping me.
Picked up a lot of bad habits back in Chicago. Hanging out with you's helping out. It's helping out a lot.
Mm-hmm.
And he says it so creepily.
Very much so.
And then it's like the scene in Batman 89 where the young Jack comes out of the vault and it's like, "See you around, kid." He says that to him. He's like, "See you around, Scotty." And it's so fucking creepy.
See you around. What time do see?
It's super creepy.
I don't know if the movie's intending him to come off that creepy.
I don't think so. I think he's just he's just supposed to be like a bad kid now. I don't know.
Yeah.
He's just supposed to have this air of like danger about him. It's
Is that our adult perception, Lindsay? You think that we look at what is essentially a grown man in a clearly a child's bedroom with an actual child in the dark, like just hiding in the dark and being like,
no, there's
"Hey,
there's some
where you been?"
right. No, there's some implications there. I mean, to anyone that's looking to find them, they're definitely there, and they're sprinkled throughout this movie. It's not just at that point.
You find this film homoerotic? Is that what you're getting at?
I don't know about that. It's just there's, it's like, say the Buttercream Gang was a real thing.
Yeah.
Okay. And I could see like some kind of scandal coming out, like all these stories coming out years later of things that happened while they were in the Buttercream Gang.
Yeah, right.
That's all I'm going to say about that.
I understand. Yes, I understand.
I've fallen down and I can't get up. I've fallen down and I can't get up.
Let's talk a little bit about the other Buttercreamers.
Let's talk about the creamers.
Yes, there's Lanny, who is kind of a nothing character. He
says, worthless.
He has nothing to do with the plot. He's just there.
He's mostly there to rag on Eldon.
Yeah.
And Eldon is by far, I don't want to say he's the most memorable of them, but he kind of is. He's kind of the most, because he's sort of, pardon me for saying this, but it's a 90s thing. He's the dumb fat kid.
He is.
I've had enough exercise for one day. I didn't notice. I had a snow cone on my mind. I'm wasting away to nothing from so much work.
Yeah, you look real wasted.
And they play that up every chance they get.
They play it up every chance they get. He has what is this second to the Life Alert commercial with the peak comedy of this film, which is the Ray Charles Diet Pepsi commercial.
You got the right one, baby.
You've got the right one, baby.
Oh, God.
Which, that is how I revealed to you what movie we were going to be talking about here today. You were like, "Hey, would you come on?" I just sent you a DM. You're like, "Do you have a movie in mind?" I sent you a DM. All it said was, "You've got the right one, baby."
Yeah.
And then I read it. I thought, "Oh God, I hope she knows what I'm talking about." Because we had just talked about the Buttercream Gang.
We did.
And then I read it back and I'm like, oh, if we're not on that same wavelength,
page, this is gonna go.
A really fucking creepy DM. It was only minutes later, but you never know. You know, things get lost in translation.
Well, especially through a text, you can't, there's no inflection or anything. So it was just.
But for your VHS YouTube street cred, you immediately knew what I was talking about. And you just went, "Oh God, okay, I'm here for it." I was like, all right. You knew exactly that I was talking about the Buttercream Gang.
Oh yeah, definitely. But no, they do that to Eldon a lot in this movie. Like, because he's always eating something or wanting to eat something. He doesn't want to do anything physical.
No, nope.
He's lazy as well.
Yeah,
He can't hit the ball.
Come on, Eldon.
Until the big game.
Until the big game. Until the big game.
Hey, don't worry, pal. I'll put you out of your misery real fast.
Here comes the pitch.
Yeah, we gotta get to that game.
Oh my god.
Oh boy.
Well, yeah, because by this point at the game, Scott and Pete are now enemies. They had their whole confrontation where if you're not my friend, you're my enemy. Because he's refusing to fight him at this point. So he's like, okay, we're not friends. I guess you're my enemy.
Yeah, the heart of the movie is basically his I don't remember the exact order of it because the plot points kind of start to loop.
There's a lot that happens in this movie. It's an hour and a half and a lot of shit goes down.
And it's almost like 5 movies put into one.
Yes.
And the gang stuff is only one part of it.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
So at some point, Scott's dad sits him on the porch.
Oh my God.
And says, well, because Scott's like, look, I've tried to do everything I can to be this guy's friend.
Mm-hmm.
And it's he threw firecrackers at the prom.
Yep.
And he bullied the nerd girl who starts to have a crush on Scott, and Scott starts to have a crush on her, and she gets rid of her glasses.
So she goes and changes her appearance entirely.
Yes.
So she's attractive to him.
and then blackmails him into taking her to the prom.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Because I can't even begin to describe why. She did a book report on Chicago gangs, and it just so happened to be a report which was the exact report on the exact gang that Pete was in, because they didn't have the internet in 1991.
No.
So the only way for this local yokel white bread kid who's not, Zach Morris, but basically looks like a little Zach Morris, to learn about gangs is to read about it in a classmate school paper.
Yes.
I just want to borrow one of your reports.
Well, which one did you want? I've tortured you with so many.
The one you gave this morning on gangs.
So he's educated about the lids or the lads or the ding dong daddies or whatever they are through
all thanks to Margaret.
Thanks to Margaret and her book report, who is also Halloween 4.
Oh yeah, shit.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
She's in Halloween 4.
But not only does she change her appearance, she changes her whole attitude.
She does, yeah.
Because she is very sassy.
Because they're a real gang, not like you guys.
When she's first introduced, but she gets those glasses off, she takes the hair down, and
she kind of submits to the patriarchy.
A little bit, she does.
Yeah.
Yep.
You really think I look pretty?
Yeah, sure.
So they go to the dance. Well, it's just crazy, right? Somehow Pete finds out that Scott's going to take a nerd to the dance, and that bothers him.
Yeah.
So he gets a group of grown men who are playing teenagers on bicycles.
Yes, because he's created his own gang by this point.
Of locals.
Yes.
He's begun to infect and convert the locals of Erie, Indiana, or wherever the hell this is.
Elk Ridge,
Utah / Iowa commit to the gang life, to the thug life.
Hey guys, did I tell you? Scott got trapped into taking the geek girl to the dance. She said you owed her a favor.
Don't call her that.
Taking her to the dance is more than just a favor.
And which legitimately consists mostly of taking 2-year-olds off of the seesaw and teeter-totter at the park, and then getting on and stealing their swings, and just absolute beyond petty crime.
Oh yes.
The most petty of crime. And he escalates it. He just throws a live firework like an M80 into the junior high summer prom.
Something like that.
Spring prom, some
Yeah.
kind of a formal in the middle of
Like
summertime.
end of
I
the
don't know.
end of the
Yeah.
school year dance, something like that.
And so Scott's had enough. He's like, look, man, you're a jerk. And he's like, oh yeah, well, you're not my friend, you're my enemy. And he's like, fine, I'm your enemy. He's like, well, then meet us tomorrow. You better not back down at noon in such and such field.
Is that a threat? Are you threatening me?
No, it's a promise.
All right, man. Tomorrow, 3 o'clock, Swanson's Field. You better be there.
We will.
And so 3 grown men are going to beat up 3 children, one of whom is Eldon, who is, few crackers short of a full sleeve.
I love his line to them though, because he's like, when we see you tomorrow, you're gonna be toast. And then Eldon goes, yeah, burnt toast.
Burnt toast.
Yeah, you'll be toast when we get done with you. Yeah, burnt toast.
Yeah. And so then they go to church.
Yes.
Because apparently that dance was on a Saturday.
Uh-huh.
Okay. So they go to church, and at church, rather than the pastor getting up and preaching an alt-right message about overthrowing the government and AR-15s, he gets up and he talks about actually like you're supposed to love people and do good to people with nothing in return.
No, and
not because you're trying to
turn the other cheek.
Yes.
Will we really take the time to learn how to love all men, not just our friends, but our enemies, those who hurt and misuse us?
Not because you're trying to convert people or change people, but just because that's
Yep, you're supposed to love them.
Because you're supposed to be filled with love, right? And it doesn't, all this sort of stuff, which was another surprise of this movie.
Yeah.
I was like, oh, geez, this is how backwards we've gotten, Lindsay. The Buttercream Gang is now progressive. It is a progressive film. Just love people and don't try to change them. And it's like, oh my God, what a revolutionary concept.
Right?
Like, honestly, if rural America rediscovers the Buttercream Gang, there will be mass burnings because this is socialist propaganda.
It is socialist propaganda.
Yeah.
You've got children working for free.
Yes.
Community for the greater good.
The local mainline pastor quotes Gandhi, and it's honestly the heart of the movie. It's a pacifist film.
True, very true. It is.
And so that's the kind of this guy's message is like, you can't repay evil for evil. You should repay evil for good.
Yep.
And
eye for an eye ends up
yes,
blinding the entire world. They
the
say
whole
that
world.
a few times. Yeah.
And honestly, that scene was funny to me. And it was supposed to be funny because the kids are pissed. They're all looking at each other because they're in different pews with their families, and they're rolling their eyes and they're like,
God damn it, God found out our plan.
God won't let us kill Pete.
I know I shouldn't have come to church today.
Coach has to know about the fight. He was looking right at me. Nah, I heard him practice it last week.
It doesn't matter. My mom told me God knows everything in advance.
These kids are gonna beat the shit out of Pete.
Oh my God.
And they can't do it, and they're mad about it.
Yes.
And they leave the church, and they're literally like, "Dang
Damn
it!
it! Why did I come to church today?"
Yeah, the one kid's like, "Yeah, why of all days for me to come to church?" And the one kid's like, "Well, maybe the pastor knew we were gonna beat the shit out of Pete." And he's like, "No, he didn't know. Apparently, he's been practicing this message for 2 weeks now." And,
yeah.
And the one kid just makes an offhanded remark. He's like, "Well, my mom says God knows everything," or something like that. And that's about as preachy as it gets. There's one more scene, which we'll get to, which is insane.
Yeah.
But so he's like, okay, I'm not going to fight Pete. And instead, they wave the white flag. And they're like, meet Scott at the old swimming hole.
At the old truck by the olive patch or some bullshit like that.
Scott wants to meet you alone.
Where?
Old truck in the olive grove.
It's better not be no double cross.
It's not.
Yeah.
Those are small town Midwest directions.
Yes. Where ostensibly, I guess we could gather that's where Pete made Scott a man or something, or inducted him into the Buttercream Gang.
He was an official Buttercreamer after that.
Yeah. Which Lindsay has very dark thoughts about what that means. And I like to believe that it's perfectly wholesome.
Completely wholesome. Very, very innocent. Yes.
And he's like, hey, if you're not a coward, this is Scott to Pete. Give me one day and we spend the day like we would have last summer.
Yep.
Just as friends.
Like old times.
What you learned in Chicago is how to fight.
Hey, man, what else is there?
Courage.
I ain't afraid of nothing.
All right. I challenge you to spend the day with me tomorrow. Just like last summer. That's if you've got the guts.
Yeah, we do. We go fishing, we go swimming, we go
Hang
get
out
ice
in the
cream.
tree house, which is the clubhouse. All that stuff.
Play cards, ride bikes, play basketball, do just wholesome stuff.
Yes.
And if you tell me at the end of the day you don't prefer that life to the one you're living, then fine. And so Pete's like, well, what's this supposed to prove? He's like, nothing. He's like, well, he's like something. And he's like, it's going to take courage for you to not be a bad person. Kind of a thing. And we get this montage, and I remembered a disturbing amount of the lyrics of this song and was singing it. Tell me, when did the storybook end? Yeah.
Oh my God.
Yeah. And it's all of this it's this like very early kind of Christian-y song.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
But they couldn't get Stephen Curtis Chapman, so they got this guy, whoever this guy is instead. And it's one of those songs where he's recounting the plot of the movie. And it's basically like, hey, we had a storybook life in this small town. Pete went to the big city. He's like singing these lyrics. Came back a gang member, and now the storybook is over.
Yeah.
And we're not even friends anymore. We're enemies.
And where do they find it?
Yeah, and where do we find it? Where do we get back on track?
Life on the streets has taught him to see the world through different eyes. What was love your neighbor as yourself now hides behind the lies.
And they just can't do it.
Because Pete actually enjoys himself. They fish, they swim, they play basketball, they do like normal kid shit and small town kid shit. And then at the end, Pete's like, I know what you're trying to do. You're trying to change me. And then again, this is where the movie surprised me, because he's like, because Scott accuses him of like, because you're stealing from people, you're doing all this bad shit, you're selfish.
Yeah.
And Pete's like, I'm not the selfish one.
You're selfish.
You're selfish.
What makes you think I'm being selfish?
Because you take things and you only think of yourself.
I only take what I deserve. I spent hours helping people like Mr. Graff and never got anything for it. I've done plenty for this crummy little town, and what did I get for it? Nothing. No, Scott, I think that you're the one who's being selfish.
Me?
Because you're only being nice to me to try to change me, because you're only willing to love me the way you want me to be. You're not willing to love me the way that I am.
Yeah. That's some deep shit right there.
It is deep shit. And then he goes in and he's like, and it's been the same way my whole life with this whole town.
Yeah, you. Real friends accept each other for who they are. You're only willing to be my friend if I change. I'm not who I was, Scott. I am who I am.
He's like, I did endless good for all of these people. And when my parents died and I needed somebody, nobody was there for me. Not my aunt, not Mr. Graff, nobody. So what's wrong with me getting what's mine? Because nobody was going to help me.
And he gets him pretty good when Scotty's like leaving.
Yeah.
He's like, you never even asked me what happened in Chicago.
Yes.
While you're walking off, friend, think of this. You never once asked me what happened in Chicago. You never once asked me. You're just like all the rest. I think I want it this way.
It's like a screenwriter actually showed up and wrote a scene. It's bizarre. And you're like, again, I'm not trying to be silly.
No, but it's very surprising.
It's surprising. And Pete, again, I'm not just saying this to be contrarian or whatever. He's right.
He is right.
And here is where I give them this movie all the credit in the world. The town of good Christian white people realizes they were wrong. And the town changes. Pete doesn't change. The town changes. They're like, okay, we're not going to treat like, obviously there's something going on with this kid. Like there's something deeper going here, and we're part of the root cause. So we're going to change the way that we treat him. We're not going to treat him like a criminal.
Nope.
So if he needs something, we're just going to give it to him.
Yep. If he comes in to steal, Mr. Graff's right there with the sodas they were going to steal.
park.
Yeah. We're just going to hang out with him, and we're just going to be kind to him and include him.
Yes.
And ask him
everyone, all the kids, everything.
Everybody.
They trick him into playing football.
Yeah, because he like goes to steal their football, and rather than them getting mad about it, they turn it into a game.
Yeah.
Like they use creative nonviolence like Gandhi to just incorporate him back into the community and in effect accept him just the way that he is. And again, I want to give more credit to this movie. It doesn't work at first. It doesn't work until the last 2 minutes.
Yeah, you don't know it's working until they finally read that.
Oh
thing.
yeah. So I'm like, holy shit! Like this movie, like of all the movies that are supposed to have like kind of a moral lesson, this or whatever, it's like it is naive, it is idealistic, it is all these things, but it is also like kind of more subtle and sophisticated than I remember it being.
Oh yeah, no,
Just wild.
It's very wild. Well, because there's stuff in this movie that is like great and is a positive message being put out there, very positive and accepting and a good way to look at things. And then there's other things where my cynical brain kicks in and I'm like, fuck that shit. Because like they show through the montage, they show the Buttercream gang doing their good deeds, and then they switch over to Pete and his gang doing bad things. And
going around and undoing the good that the Buttercream gang did. Like just they target him, Scotty in particular. They pick up all his newspapers that he's just delivered and throw them in his own front yard, so he has to deliver them all again, shit like that. Yeah. But they show like the Buttercreamers painting some old lady's fence. Yeah. And she's bringing them glasses of milk like on a 95-degree day. Meanwhile, Pete and his friends are down at the train tracks breaking bottles and lighting shit on fire. I'm like, that seems like more fun to me. Where the movie is like saccharine and all and too sweet for it is that the town that they're from, it's so picturesque and so Norman Rockwell and so perfect that it's unrealistic.
Oh yeah. They don't even show a police officer in this movie.
No.
Even when guy shows...
No, they do. They do.
They did? Oh.
Yes. There's a cop car in front of... So I was surprised by it because they even had the town's name stamped on the side of it.
Right.
And that surprised me because I didn't think they would have that production value in the movie. But it's when Pete tries to fake his own kidnapping.
That's right.
That's because people are being too kind to him.
And that's another thing. The girl goes and tells the Buttercreamers that somebody broke into Pete's grandpa's house. And the one is like, should we call the cops? And he's like, nah, let's just go check it out first.
I think somebody broke into Pete's house.
Sure?
Oh, but I left Eldon there to watch.
Eldon?
Did you see me sending him for help?
That's a good point.
I promised him a giant milkshake if you just stayed there.
Well, maybe we should call the police. We better go check it out first.
I'm like, call the fucking police.
Yeah, Scott's like, yeah, Pete might be in trouble. We should just go there first. I'm like, you're children.
What are you gonna do? Well,
this guy's a gun to his head.
They dogpile on the dope dealer.
They dogpile on a masked man with a gun who is holding Pete hostage to steal his grandfather's gold doubloons out of a safe.
Oh my god.
And the grandpa's like, I don't even have those coins anymore. I'm poor.
Now you give them to me right now, or I'm gonna hurt this kid real bad.
You better listen to him, Gramps.
I've told you, I don't have them here. They're down at the bank in a safety deposit box.
And he's like, I'm going to kill this kid. I swear to God. And again, this movie has, towards the third act, has really weird escalations.
Yes.
There's 3 of them. That's one of them. Another weird escalation is the one we were talking about where Scotty gets the living bejesus kicked out of him.
Yeah, he gets jumped, essentially.
For real.
Yeah.
And it's like, oh, wow, this is like a actual thing a gang would do. And then the third is after he's had the shit kicked out of him.
Yes.
He goes to his dad for consolation, and his dad's like, let me tell you a story, son.
You know, I don't talk too much about the war.
And his dad is like Bob Ross levels of calm and complete flat affect. Big old 70s mustache, even though it's 1990. And he's like, let me tell you a story, son.
You know, I don't talk too much about the war.
When I was in the Vietnam, and you're like, wait a minute, what?
What?
We were out on night patrol. We got ambushed. The point man was down.
Actually, I think he says Nam. I think he
says
Nam.
Nam, like back in Nam. I'm like,
He's
oh my
back in
God.
Nam. There's this one guy that we all treated real bad. We all hated him, and we treated him really poorly. His name was Scott Paulson or something like that, right?
Something like that.
I knew a soldier in Vietnam who always introduced himself by saying, hi, I'm Scott Paulson. I'm a Christian.
He's like, Scott was a real devout Christian, and we didn't like that about him. So we treated him even worse once we found out he was a Christian. You're like, where is this story going?
I know.
We got ambushed. The point man was down.
Like one day, the guy, like one of the people in the platoon who treated him the absolute worst was in some situation where he's going to lose his life.
Yeah.
And Scott put himself in line of fire and saved him.
Died
like,
saving the guy.
Well, no, he didn't. I don't think he died saving him. Because
the ironic thing about the whole situation was that he died saving a soldier that absolutely hated him.
Then he's like, you're like, okay, that's a heroic story. Then he goes, two days later, he was killed in action.
I was waiting for him to say like some real non-flashback shit. Like,
here's my working theory,
grenades
Lindsay.
into a foxhole or something.
Here's my working theory, because he's like, that's why we named you Scott.
The first time I held you in my arms, I realized that I would give my life to protect you. And at that moment, I remembered Private Scott Paulson.
Right? Because that's where he gets his name from. My working theory is he was Scott's, the Nam Scott's abuser. The dad abused Nam Scott.
He's the one that hated him the most.
He's the one who hated him the most, and Scott saved his life. So as a way to assuage his guilt for his eventual death, he has named his kid Scott and has raised him. That's why nothing bothers this guy, because the shit this guy has seen in Nam. What's a little gang? Pete's in a gang is gonna beat the shit out of my kid.
Stealing shoelaces. Who gives a shit?
My kid's coming home with a black eye and a busted lip and is maybe concussed. Okay, I saw Scott Paulson's legs get blown off after he saved my life. 2 days after he saved my life, in the name of his God, Jesus Christ motivated this man to save my life, even though I abused him. And 2 days later, Jesus killed that guy.
Yeah.
That is heavy shit that guy has to do.
Heavy.
Yes. And that comes out of nowhere. And it is said as matter of fact as anything else, as if the guy was just reading the newspaper. And you're like, whoa. What the fuck? Yeah.
We got ambushed. The point man was down.
But that's where we get this that talk right there, because we have several kid adult talks, and that's one thing I like about this, because it's like showing kids that they can go talk to an adult about serious issues that they're having. But that's where that was like the catalyst for the town changing, and like because Pete tries to steal Scott's bike and he's like, here, have it, you can have it. I don't care.
You're my friend, Pete. If you want to need my bike, just take my bike.
If you need it that bad, you can have it. That kind of shit.
Which means, and here's another thing. Here's another sophisticated thing about this movie, which means he's a paper delivery boy. Now he has no bike.
No.
So the movie doesn't, immediately go, well, hey, good job, son. Here's a new bike to replace the one you gave away.
Nope.
Good Christian boy. He just doesn't get another bike at all.
He has to run.
He's running in the heat of summer and hand delivering newspapers. And he even says, he's like, I knew this was going to be hard, but I didn't know it was going to be this hard. Like, I didn't know. And Margaret shows up and then flat out says, like, hey, like, doing good for people, especially people who don't like you, like, it's going to require like sacrifice.
Yeah. And you're not going to see an immediate return.
If at all, she says, if at all. And that's the one thing his dad tells him. He's because his dad's like, after he tells him that horrible Vietnam story, his dad's like, basically to him, he's like, well, if you were just being nice to Pete to change him, you were being selfish.
Yeah.
Do you think if I love Pete, that'll change?
If you love Pete just to make him change, then you're loving him for the wrong reason.
If you're doing it just to make things like they were, then that's not
you have
the
to
way
accept
go.
him completely as he is, without any promise that he'll ever change.
The people that have the greatest impact for good on others, son, are those who can love someone without having that person love them back.
Again, that's like fairly progressive for this movie. It's a message we don't hear anymore at all, anywhere, even in places you're supposed to hear it. So it's very strange. The whole time I was like, is this movie better than what I remember? Like what? And it kind of is. It's 100% of what I remember it being, and it's also better than I remember it being. It's both of those things.
No, the messages are timeless, I would say. They translate.
Can we talk about the baseball game?
Yes, let's talk about the baseball game.
So the whole town has basically just decided, like, hey, we failed this kid.
Mm-hmm.
And so they all start treating him different, Pete, and they all start being kind to him and kind of unconditionally loving him is really what they're doing.
Mm-hmm.
And the kids are in the Buttercream Gang. Baseball team is in the pastor is also the coach.
Yes.
Is in the big game against the Braves or something like that.
Yeah.
The Boys League Big Game Championship.
Braves versus the Red Sox.
And Eldon, who can't hit, hits. He gets a double.
Finally hit. He fakes them out. He uses their prejudices against him.
That's correct.
Against them.
Look, this guy can't hit. He's frozen.
Eldon, don't freeze up now.
Because they're like,
Yes.
He's frozen. He's just this stupid idiot. He's just standing there. Just throw it right down the plate. Let's put him out of his misery.
Hey, don't worry, pal. I'll put you out of your misery real fast.
Here comes the pitch.
A line drive.
For the record, nobody on this set, if there was a set, but whatever you want to call it, nobody on this production had ever played actual baseball.
No.
Because the kid who played Eldon has the single worst baseball stance I have ever seen.
He's like leaning all the way over, straight-legged.
He's straight-legged, completely crouched almost. His
like,
top
oh.
half is completely bent over. He's halfway down his own body. I don't think you could replicate that pose if you tried.
Probably not.
It doesn't look like he's ever held a bat in his life.
No. Not
I
at
was
all.
thinking that was part of the fake out, but it isn't.
Nope.
It's just his baseball stance. Nobody on production corrected him, which is very strange. He hits a double. So they have a runner on third. They have Eldon on second, which means they've got the tying and the winning run, right?
Mm-hmm.
So Scott, who's the hero of the baseball team,
He's been fucking up a little though, because
Yes, he has.
Pete's been razzing him. Like in
Pete-
Happy Gilmore.
Yes.
You suck.
grown man Pete is just outside the ballpark telling him that he stinks. Yeah, he's gonna choke.
Come on, Braves, send these Red Sox home.
How does he put it to me? He's like, you're gonna let your team
You're gonna
down,
let your whole team down, just like you let me down,
let your
or
friends
something.
down.
Yeah.
Just like you let your friends down. Why don't you tell your team what a terrible friend you are, Scott?
You don't let your team down the way you do your friends.
What a strange play.
As I expected, freezes up when it really counts.
Now you're gonna let them down, and you don't accept them as they are. It's like, and no adult walks over and stops this bully
No, not at
from
all.
harassing his kid,
Mm-mm.
and he hits a pop-up fly. Game over. The Buttercreamers lose the big game.
Hey, buddy, lots of pressure. Don't freeze up now. Don't want you to blow the championship for the whole team.
Our main Buttercream ganger,
Mm-hmm.
Buttercreamer, doesn't overcome.
He doesn't.
Fucking fails.
Mm-hmm.
The game is being broadcast on local radio.
For some reason.
For some reason, the local radio guy 100% calls him out. He's like, well,
By
Scott
name.
Carpenter, who's usually a pretty good player,
He just shit his pants out there today.
He just absolutely shit his pants, folks.
With runners on second and third, Scott Carpenter, their hard-hitting left fielder, fouls out on a ball way outside the strike zone.
ruined the season for the boys league, whatever baseball team. And it goes on and on and on. And then he loses his cool, right? He's like, oh, whatever. And, and Scott's like yelling at Pete. He yells at Pete's grandpa. He's like, you need to send him back to Chicago. He doesn't belong here. It's your fucking fault, Grandpa.
I'm sorry, Scott. I wish there was something I could do.
You can send him back to Chicago where he belongs.
And so then the pastor / coach comes over and goes, you're benched for the rest of the season. You're out of the game. You're benched for the rest of the season.
But we're gonna have an introspective discussion later while I throw balls at you.
I want to see you after the game, kid. And then it's like, oh, we got into a tuffle with his coach. Got into a scuffle with his coach.
Yeah,
he's gonna be hanging out after the game. It's like, wow, way to pile on this child.
I know.
This town puts a lot of responsibility on its children.
Yes, it does. But
if ever there was a Children of the Corn situation, it would be Elk Ridge, Utah, wherever the fuck it is.
But
Elk Ridge.
Yeah, but then they have that nice little, he's throwing balls at him to hit, and he's talking to him about Gandhi.
Did you know that India was still ruled by England until after World War II?
Because each of these individual adult conversations don't help this kid at all.
No, they make things worse.
They make things worse.
Yeah.
But when you put them all together, they kind of start making sense. And once he looks at everything, the bigger picture, he finally figures out how he needs to be.
And it leads us to the greatest scene in cinematic history.
Oh my God.
Which is Pete in the craft store.
In the general store, losing his fucking mind.
Give me your money, old man. What? Open it up, come on.
The movie kind of swerves just a little bit, right? So he's like with his gang, and he's like, what do you want to do now, Pete? And he's like, nothing, go home. I just want to be by myself. And then they're like, well, I thought we were going to hang out. And he screams at him. He's like, I just need some time to think by myself, okay? And you're thinking, okay, maybe he's having a change of heart.
Maybe.
You know what I mean? Maybe it's like his conscience is starting to work on him.
Yeah, it's finally starting to get in there.
No. Instead, he escalates it. And that's when he apparently already had this in the works, but he gets a local roughneck,
something
hillbilly, pro wrestler, whatever this guy is, to pretend like he's robbing the house and holding him at gunpoint to steal some gold coins that his grandpa has, which his grandpa apparently no longer has. And so everything starts to fall apart. The Buttercream Gang, like you said, they show up. Them and very many small girls, like 3-year-old girls, dogpile this pro wrestler, rapist, thief, murderer, and they dogpile him. And then they bonk him on the head like a cartoon. He's like, I'm getting out of here. When he runs away, he's like,
Benny Hill theme plays.
Yeah, and he says, like, you double-crossed me, kid. I'm gonna kill you, right? He totally threatens Pete. So Pete's life is now truly in jeopardy.
And he just wants to get back to Chicago.
And so he goes absolutely berserk, goes to Graff's, wants to rob the store to get money. And instead, Mr. Graff is like, well, Pete, if you needed money, you don't need to rob me. I'll just give it to you.
It gives him like $250, and he's like, is that enough?
And he's like, yeah, if it's not enough, I've got some personal money. Do you need more? I'll just give you some more. And he's like, well, I got to get back to Chicago. He's like, okay, we'll help you get back to Chicago. He's like, is everybody in this town crazy? What's wrong with you people?
You're as crazy as Scott. This whole town is crazy. What's the matter with you people?
And then the Buttercream Gang shows up, and they're like, what do you need, Pete? How can we help you? He's like, leave me alone. And I think I thought he grabbed a breadstick, a giant breadstick.
He had something in his hand.
It's a baseball bat based on the Foley sound when he drops it. But it looks like it is a loaf
baguette.
of bread. A baguette.
I want you to try and stop me. That's it. I'm going to tear apart this whole store until you do stop me. You understand?
And this kid starts wrecking the show.
Wrecking the place. I noticed
they had
I noticed they had a bag of Crunchers on the shelf. Do you remember those chips?
I remember them from all of the posts on Twitter when people go, do you remember these chips?
In a blind taste test, Crunchers, the potato chips cooked in peanut oil, were preferred over other brands. Try Crunchers. They are different.
It just stuck out in my mind during that scene. I was like, oh, that's a bag of Crunchers.
I remember that you're nostalgic for them. I don't have any nostalgia for them. That's how far the nostalgia snake has begun to eat. My nostalgia, I'm not nostalgic for times in which people posted listicles about foods that were discontinued.
My favorite now are like, oh, Gen Xers are this and millennials are that, and Generation Z is this, and Generation X was the best generation ever, and we were the last ones to play outside.
Okay, here's the thing, Lindsay. This is going to scare you, but in 20 years, you're going to be somebody's nostalgia.
Oh, I know.
I'm gonna be like, remember when Lindsay Washburn talked about VHS videos on YouTube? I grew up with that shit.
The stuff from when I was a teenager is already coming back, like the low-rise jeans.
Oh yeah.
I just read some fucking article today that said like the skinny overwaxed eyebrows are coming back.
They're coming back. I saw a commercial, 100% for real, for Lee Silver Tab jeans, which used to be a 90s JC Penney fashion staple.
Are they boot cut?
They're boot cut. And the commercial was in black and white, and the kids were wearing oversized 90s shirts, and they brought the Silver Tab 90s logo and font and everything back. And it was a commercial, like it looked like straight from 1990.
Oh my God.
And it wasn't a parody, it wasn't an homage. They were presenting it as new. And now I feel like my mom, who was watching commercials with me in 1991 when the Buttercream Gang came out, and all that 70s and 60s shit started to come back. And she's like, you guys can't come up with anything original. This is like back from my day. And now here I am. I'm like, these kids, this is back from my day. Yeah.
What's the matter with you people? Don't you got any brains in your head?
Back to the final the peak of this movie, the final confrontation, if you will. My favorite part of that is when Pete finally kind of expresses the way he feels with his words. He's like, why don't you hate me? And Scotty's like, why would I hate you? I can't hate you.
My friend.
You're my friend.
Yeah.
I could never do that.
I never hate you, Pete. You're my friend.
Pete, you're my friend. I can't hate you.
Yeah.
And he's like, because I hate myself.
He's like, why would you want me to hate you? He's like, because I hate
myself.
I want you to hate me.
You want me to hate you? Why?
Because I hate myself.
Then he runs out of the store.
And evidently all the way to Chicago.
All the way to Chicago with no fucking money. Then the movie fakes out.
I thought he was fucking dead.
Because the whole year, they do the whole montage again. And it doesn't make any sense because he doesn't go back to his aunt. He goes back to his gang.
And lives with his gang.
He lives with the gang.
I just found out Pete's back in Chicago. But he's not back with his aunt. Just heard that he's living with a member of the old gang.
In what I can only imagine is a Foot Clan style lair where they play Nintendo and smoke menthol Parliament cigarettes and eat pizza.
Yes.
But Scott starts writing him letters again. And at this point, I'm like, take a hint, kid.
Take a hint.
It's not him, it's you. This guy doesn't want to be your buddy anymore. But anyways, he's like, your aunt told me you're living with your gang and she gave me your address. So I decided to write to you. I hope it's okay, Pete. And it's 100% what he says. That's not an exaggeration.
Nope.
And he mails letters for a year, doesn't hear anything back. A full year goes by. He's like, I'm 2 inches taller, Pete. And, Margaret's finally getting her boobs and all this other stuff.
I'm starting to grow hair.
Yeah.
Silly places.
Right. No response. He comes home from delivering his newspapers or whatever it is, or school or whatever he's doing. The entire town.
The entire fucking town is there in his kitchen.
character we've ever met in this movie.
And some we haven't.
And some we haven't are in his dining room with a letter from Pete's aunt. And they all look as if somebody has died.
Yeah.
Well, what happened? I'm really proud of you. You did the right thing.
And they're saying to him, like, you did such a good job or something, or we're so proud of you.
Yeah, no,
and then they're like about to start bawling or something.
Yes.
I think we ought to have the Reverend read that letter. He's had a lot more experience with this type of thing.
And his dad's like, I just want you to know, son, it doesn't always work out like this.
Yeah.
Thinking like, okay, sometimes when you do good for people, you can't save them, right?
I just want you to know, son, it doesn't always turn out this way.
And so they finally read it, and even it's like, oh, I haven't written to you in a while. Last time I talked to you, I told you that Pete was living with his gang. And then you're thinking, oh, he's dead. He got killed.
Yeah.
He was shot. He was stabbed. He
He
killed
got some
somebody.
bad smack, something like
Yeah,
that.
dude, this kid is dead, and this is how this movie's going to end. And it's not true, Lindsay. How does it end?
He changes his gang to be a good gang. So he took the Buttercreamers. It's now a franchise.
Yes.
And he started the Chicago chapter of the Buttercreamers. And he is making a difference and taking the values and lessons and principles of the Buttercream Gang to the mean streets of Chicago. And he's making a difference.
This gang, which only a few months ago was typical of those often found in the area, refuses to fight or participate in any kind of illegal activity. Instead, they devote much of their time to helping and serving the community around them.
And he's on the front page of the paper.
Shaking
or in some section
Rudy
of the paper,
Giuliani's hand.
shaking the mayor of Chicago's hand because he gets a commendation from the mayor of Chicago.
Yes.
And what he says is what he's learned is that basically what's at the root of a lot of bad stuff is self-hatred and a lack of self-acceptance.
Yes.
And so he's working with gang members to convince them to love themselves and accept themselves. And in return, do good for others with expecting nothing in return.
Yep.
And apparently his gang didn't murder him on the spot when he pitched this idea. Instead, they embraced it. And then so then I'm going, okay, all right. If his gang, the Lids, the Lads, the Ding Dong Daddies, the Cream Pie Papas, whatever they are, if they accepted it, if they accepted his vision for like, hey, we could be a gang of Gandhis.
Yes.
Every other gang would kill them.
Probably, yeah.
Because they actually were doing bad things.
Yeah.
So that means they were probably looting, stealing, encroaching other people's turf, et cetera, et cetera. They were probably involved in conflicts with their gangs. So just because they've decided to turn a new leaf, which is commendable, doesn't mean that they're not going to be murdered by all the gangs they've wronged along the way.
No.
So my advice to Pete and his friends is pick a different city to go do good.
Yes.
Get the hell out of Chicago, Pete. And I don't want to get into spoilers, but Pete is one of the only characters that does not appear in the sequel. He's not in it at all.
Oh my God.
His character isn't even mentioned. Margaret's
Something
in
happened.
it. The dad's in it. Everybody's in it. Pete's not in it. Pete was brutally murdered. Execution style in the mean streets of Chicago. He's been spending all his life living in a gangster's paradise. There was bullet smoke in the street lights. Lights out, Pete. Good night.
Oh my God.
R.I.P. Pour one out for Pete.
Pour one out for Pete.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
Little known fact, Dangerous Minds is actually a movie based on the real life adventures of Pete from the Buttercream Gang.
And that character gets killed in that movie
That's right.
after they go to Six Flags.
Yeah, dead. I will say this, the Buttercream Gang were able to do what even Michelle Pfeiffer and Keanu Reeves couldn't do. Because Keanu Reeves got that little kid shot in that baseball movie. Shorty Mac or whatever his name was. He got that little kid killed. And Scott, at the very least, temporarily saved the life of Pete.
He did. He at least set him on the right path.
Yeah.
Helped him find the right path.
Yeah, he was later brutally murdered,
Mhm.
but yeah, at least didn't kill a kid like Keanu Reeves
No.
or Michelle Pfeiffer.
You got the right one, baby.
There is one theme in this movie. I mean, like we said, there's a lot going on in this film. There's several different smaller plot points
That we did not cover.
that we did not cover. But one that I do want to talk about is that the Buttercreamers are becoming aware of girls because they talk about the dance a lot.
Yes.
And especially Eldon is scared that he's scared to dance with a girl because he's like, I'm nervous. And they're like, why? Well, what if a slow song comes on?
I'm not afraid. I'm just a little worried. What am I gonna do if I'm out dancing with the girl and they start playing a slow song?
You slow down.
Yeah.
And there's this whole discussion about school dances and they don't want to have anything to do with girls. And then later on in the movie, towards the end, they finally accept girls into the Buttercream Gang because until this point, it was boys only.
Well, let me ask you this question. We don't officially see the motion is put forward by Margaret.
That's true.
Who is sleeping with or whatever the child, the leader of the Buttercream Gang. Let's roll the tape back a little bit. Is the context of well, let me ask you, okay, well, what do you think the context is for why they're afraid of slow dances?
I was talking about this with my husband while we were watching the movie.
Yeah.
And I was like, every single slow dance with a boy in junior high and into high school that I slow danced with, I felt it.
Yes, that's the fear.
That's the fear.
Yes.
And I was saying to my husband, I'm like, it would just be very awkward.
Yes.
Because when that happens, you don't want to say anything, and the boy will not make eye contact with you.
Right.
At all. And my husband goes, well, what do you want him to do? Stare straight into your face? What is happening?
Yeah.
I was like, oh, I didn't think about it that way. But no, I
You have two fears at that time in your life. Well, three. Okay. Your fear number one is that you smell bad.
Yeah.
That, okay, I put deodorant on, I got Banaka.
Yeah. You don't quite
mouthwash.
at that time in your life, a lot of things are happening with your body. You don't quite understand everything or what it's gonna do. So you get surprises every now and then.
Yep. And dances are hot, they're sweaty. Yeah. So you're afraid you're gonna stink or you're gonna have bad breath. That's the where it starts. You're afraid you're gonna step on her feet. Because I don't really know how to dance. I'm afraid I'm gonna look stupid and she's gonna think I'm not cool. And you're afraid that because you're spending most of your time with your books in front of you down the hallway.
Yep.
And there's no provocation. So, and it's almost worse because if you go as, oh, well, I don't have a crush on this girl. She's just my friend. She's a part of my friend group.
Yep.
Doesn't mean anything. It'll still happen right then, right there. It'll still happen. And you're like, but I don't actually feel that way. So now you
don't have control over this.
Yeah, you don't. Now you've creeped out this person, or you're afraid you're gonna creep them out.
Yeah.
And you're creeping yourself out, and it's just it's a living hell.
Yeah. But
puberty is hell.
It happened every time.
Every time. Every time. And so what since you have the opposite experience as I do, when you're talking to your did your husband ask you what you did at the time? You just played it off like it just wasn't happening.
I ignored it.
Would that be the moment you started the conversation, or would that be a moment you got real quiet?
Usually real quiet. I don't know. Usually there was no talking. We're just dancing, and then all of a sudden I'm like, I think I know what that is. What is that? I think I know what that is, but I don't want to say anything.
And the words,
I don't want to make it even more uncomfortable.
Yeah. In the words of the poet laureates of my junior high dance experiences. Next. feel a little poke coming through on you. Yeah.
Step back, you're standing kind of close.
Yeah, stand back.
You're dancing kind of close.
You're dancing too close. Yeah, kind of close.
But I know you can tell I'm excited. Oh, girl.
Exactly.
Oh my God.
That's exactly right.
Oh my
They
God.
knew. They knew. They tried to educate us.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
No, it was a very subtle way to bring up that whole situation.
When they say that song, because baby, when we're dancing,
Mhm.
it's almost like we're sexing.
Yes.
I think no greater lyrics have ever been written.
You know what you're doing, don't you? You're making it hard for me.
But yeah, before we go, I wanted to on the VHS on the back, there's a parent's guide for family discussion. And we won't go, there's 5 questions, we won't go through them all, but I thought I'd ask a couple. This one's a good one. Does doing the right thing always bring immediate results we can see? And that's one we kind of talked about already.
Yeah.
Because he gives him his bike, they try to include him, and it still doesn't help, even all that stuff that they're doing.
No, and this kind of circles me back around to a point I wanted to make about the finale of the film.
Mhm.
As silly as it is, kind of in seriousness, it's that Pete doesn't come back to the town.
No.
Pete has a change of heart. Pete changes his ways. Pete helps change other people's lives,
Mhm.
and he still ghosts Scotty.
Because he's changed. He can't go
Yes.
back to the person that he was
Yes.
before he went to Chicago. So they didn't tie it up in a happy bow where he comes
No.
back and he's the leader, or he's in the Buttercream Gang again, and they all go pick the Widow Jenkins up off the floor again.
Yeah, it doesn't
It
happen.
doesn't happen that way.
And it's not even him writing the letter of going, hey, I wanted to write you sooner, but I've been so busy doing good for our Lord and Savior Jesus Christ of Chicago.
Mhm.
It doesn't happen. It's
Nope.
the aunt that's writing.
Yes.
And she doesn't have a relationship with him.
No.
She just happens to see it in the paper, she says,
Mhm.
which I want to say, good for Pete to
Yeah.
cut some toxic fucking people out of
Exactly.
his aunt, because yeah, he doesn't need that shit.
He does not.
So no, I think the moral of this movie, and the good question to ask, is no, you can do good towards people, and because you love them and because you want the best for them, and it doesn't necessarily change the outcome for them immediately or ever.
Yeah. And
Yeah, some things are just
yeah.
unchangeable.
The last question, number 5, is what does unconditional love mean?
Oof.
And I think for the purposes of this movie, it's like they loved Pete even though he didn't come back and was the old Pete again. They did it
Yes, right.
unselfishly, not because I'm going to get my friend back, because it's good. It's a good thing for this person.
Yeah, I think unconditional love is boy, did you think we were gonna end
And
here?
up on this? No.
No, I think but I think unconditional love, especially in this movie, or what this movie posits it as being, is accepting somebody the way that they are.
Mhm.
And even if there's things about them that you don't like, or things about them that are, even if they're self-destructive,
Yeah.
you love them as they are. It doesn't mean you don't have boundaries, because they do set boundaries with Pete, but they just they love him without the intent of trying to get anything in return for it.
Yeah.
And it's that old cliche where somebody says, your character is how you treat people who can do nothing for you.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that in the world, there are givers and there are takers, right? There are people who show up into situations and go, what can I contribute?
Mm-hmm.
What can I give? Even if I don't have a lot, what can I give for the sake of others in any given situation? There are people who show up and go, what's in it for me?
Yeah.
And YouTube is filled with people who are asking the question of what's in it for me.
Exactly. Exactly. Oh yeah.
Which is why I'm surprised you're here on this platform.
Oh my God.
I think you're more of a Scott than a Pete.
Maybe, yeah.
I'm just a Lanny.
You're just here.
I just like to pitch baseball games in very heavily starched blue jeans.
Yes. And
yeah.
And
I want
fat
no
shame your
mobility. Yeah, I want no mobility when I'm participating in athletics. And then I want to fat shame my friend who is equally as obese as I am to get the heat off of myself. And I want to shame my friends for falling in love, or at the very least, just wanting to dance with the girl.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yep. And the movie ends with them taking off to help the widow Jenkins again. She's fallen again.
This time she's a bloated corpse, but that's the cut. That cut they left that in that's the assembly cut of the uncensored version of the Buttercream Gang. Yeah. Let me ask you this:
man.
Is this movie? Is this movie good? Is it secretly actually good? Maybe is too strong. Is it secretly decent?
Yes, I would agree with that.
Yeah,
because I mean it's well shot. I mean, for a movie of this type,
right.
Acting isn't completely atrocious. There's some.
No, I think the kid Scott, I think is actually pretty good for a kid actor in this type of production. Yeah.
Well, because when you get around kid actors, there's a tendency for them to get really fucking annoying very quickly. And I wasn't annoyed by any of the kids in this movie. And like we said, they pack a lot into this movie. Because I mean, it's 95 minutes and it feels like it's almost 2 hours long. I will give it that. I mean, it takes a while, but there's something always going on. I'm never bored. I was never bored watching this movie.
I think at times it's redundant. Not so much. Here's what's weird about it. It's not redundant necessarily, like in its message in a bad way. So it doesn't feel heavy-handed, like it's preaching to you.
No.
It's sort of redundant in some of its plot points. There's like maybe one too many confrontations between Pete and Scott. It's like, okay, we've already had this conversation, right?
Mm-hmm.
There's one too many rescues of the widow Jenkins, or one too many little side. There's too many side plots, really, is what it comes down to.
Maybe one too many montages of fishing and doing things and riding bikes.
That song has a couple of reprises. The song
does.
You know what this reminded me of, though, as I revisit it, to my surprise?
Mm-hmm.
Only you will understand what I'm talking about, and probably your viewers, but vast majority of people will have no idea what I'm talking about. So this will be great content. When the Disney Channel first launched, it was a premium station like HBO, Cinemax, Showtime, Movie Channel, whatever, right? No commercials. The interstitials were Mickey Mouse shorts and old-timey content. You had Spooky Scary, Dumbo's Flying Circus, Spooky Scary's Poop, Welcome to Poop Corner.
My God.
Sometimes bad strangers will play bad tricks on you.
What kind of tricks?
Watch our friend Timmy and see if you can find the trick.
Hey, kid, come here a second. I seem to have lost my dog somewhere around here, and I was wondering if you might help me try to find him.
But anyways, that's what the Disney Channel was. And the new Mickey Mouse Club and Kids Incorporated and all this sort of stuff.
Mm-hmm.
But the rest of the time, because they had so much time to fill on that network, they would go get weird Canadian family movies and buy their cable distribution rights. And there's one I found a clip for it somewhere on the internet, which is about a boy who falls in love with a girl who turns out to be a Russian spy or something like that. It's like Cold War paranoia. But it's like, oh my God, it's like it's like My Little Russian Doll or something like that.
God.
But it would not play at all today. But the level of movie is this is the exact level of movie that would have played on the Disney Channel in its premium years at 7 p.m. on a Sunday night in 1986.
A couple that I remember, a couple of those movies that I remember are Trap on Cougar Mountain.
I remember the name, but I don't remember the movie.
Yeah, I have the VHS. I haven't watched it in probably 30 years. I need to revisit it. And then the other one was Mystery Mansion.
I do remember that. Yes, I do remember Mystery Mansion. We're not talking about the Disney Channel originals that other kids like from the 90s are talking about, of like Luck of the Irish and all this sort of shit. This was way back when they weren't producing these movies. They were just buying the rights to them and
They
showing them
needed
on TV.
something Disney friendly to put on their new channel.
Yeah, it would be like the return of Swiss Family Robinson.
Yes.
You know, it was
Escape from Witch Mountain, shit like that. They showed
Yes.
those old Disney movies. But
And then when they only had so many of those, and so the rest of the time it was really cheap family friendly productions. One of the famous ones is the kid, I'm pretty sure it's the kid who plays Bug in Uncle Buck, and Alan Thicke, I want to say, and he made him, and he's a robot, and it's like almost human or better than human, or not quite human, I think.
Not quite human.
Yeah, they made like 2 or 3 of those. And it's basically a revamp of the old Kurt Russell, the computer who wore tennis shoes.
Yeah.
But for like the 80s generation. And that's what this movie is. This movie would have played, it's a little too Jesus-y.
A little bit. But they do, it's not preachy though, because I mean they show the family praying every once in a while.
And they go to church.
And they go to church. Yeah. But it's never
there's no altar call. They don't ask you at the end of this movie to give your life to Christ.
They're not quoting the Bible really or anything like that. So
no. Nope. What's interesting though is when I make my return to your channel to talk about the secrets of Treasure Mountain, it opens with a monk translating the Gospel of Luke in a cave as conquistadors, murderous conquistadors kill and murder to hide their treasure. And I'm like, whoa. And as you can see from the front, that ain't Scotty.
No.
That's Eldon.
What?
Eldon is the hero of this movie.
No
Scott's
way.
in it, but they thought because Eldon loved to quote those 90s commercials. I'm surprised Eldon didn't do like a California Raisins dance or something in this movie.
Something.
Because all of his lines are just quotes from commercials from circa 1989. It's really strange.
It's very, very strange.
Yeah. But so then they were like, we got it. The dad's back. Margaret's back. Scott's back. Lanny's
Does he
back.
have another Vietnam flashback in the movie?
I didn't make it that far because I didn't want to spoil it because I knew we weren't going to talk about it today. But I'd like to come back if you found anything redemptive about my contributions to your content.
Oh yeah,
we've got to talk about the secrets of Treasure Mountain.
We do.
Now, lastly, what's interesting is it's not the Buttercream Gang. It's the Buttercream Gang in Secret of Treasure Mountain. And I think that after the movie we talked about today, they felt like they had a franchise on their hands.
Oh yeah, definitely.
And then I think that these kids got way too fucking old because they're grown men in this sequel. And I think by the time they got around to doing another one, they were in college and were like, I'm not doing any more of your weird Mormon movies.
No, thank you. I'll pass on that one.
And then before you knew it, the guy who was behind feature films for families was being sued by Verizon.
Oh my God. Yes. No, that's for calling millions of people.
And selling movies in the name of charity?
Yeah. No, I have the article in front of me.
Go ahead.
The title is Utah operation responsible for making more than 117 million illegal telemarketing calls to consumers, settles Federal Trade Commission charges.
That's right. Yeah.
Let's see. The 2016 jury verdict covered 6 different telemarketing sales rule violations, including violations of the FTC's regulations requiring telemarketers to use caller identification names that tell consumers what seller is calling, and restrictions on telemarketers making calls to consumers without connecting the call to a sales representative within 2 seconds. But really, they called like a couple million phone numbers that are on the do not call registry.
Yes.
And
they found a loophole.
Yeah.
They partnered with some kind of a charity.
The Dove charity.
The Dove Foundation or something.
Dove Foundation, yeah.
Which the do not call list is non-applicable to them because they're a nonprofit. So they just had them call on their behalf, but when they got on the phone with them, they transferred them to salespeople to sell them not quite Christian home videos.
No. Yeah, there was a imposed civil penalty judgment of $45.5 million,
Oh my
but
God.
all of it was suspended, except conditionally suspended, except for like $500,000. But
How
this is
many?
it's
Go ahead.
it's crazy because this is the evidence that they had. Um, Violations by defendants during multiple telemarketing campaigns. In one nationwide campaign, corporations for character called consumers under the name Kids First and offered to send
Wow.
2 free DVDs and requested feedback on whether the movie should be included on a list of recommended movies. This telemarketing campaign resulted in millions of calls to consumers on the DNC Do Not Call registry, in which defendants urged consumers to buy additional DVDs by telling them that all the proceeds from sales would be used to complete a recommended viewing list of the nonprofit Coalition for Quality Children's Media. In reality, feature films had contracted to receive 93% of all the money collected by
Jeez.
consumers.
So they changed the scam from being like a
Yes.
CD subscription scam
Mm-hmm.
to be just absolutely fleecing
Yes.
the
Saying,
public.
we want to protect your children.
Yeah, but we
All
need to create
children.
a list.
We need to create
Yeah.
a list of movies that are acceptable, that you can trust this list, and we'll send you
Yeah.
movies off this list. But if you want to help us with the money it's going to cost to compile this list,
Yeah.
that's going to be great. And they just took 93% of it.
That's unreal. Yeah. Well,
Crazy.
I have a whole stack of these, and they're all original. I have not thrift shopped it for any of them.
Oh my God.
And some of them I've got in your wildest dreams or some shit. I literally got a box of them. And yeah, anytime you want to talk about feature films for families.
Yeah, I would definitely love to explore more of these films. I think I have maybe 1 or 2 more
Yeah.
on the shelf, but I have not seen them. So no, I'd be very interested in exploring this topic more.
If we have convinced any of the Washburn Legion that follow you and are subscribers of your channel and hit that notification button,
Yeah.
so they get all of your videos up front and early, to watch the Buttercream Gang, I would recommend that you find it. It's not available on any streaming platform.
It's on YouTube.
But there's 2 rips on YouTube, and between the 2 of them, you should be able to complete the movie, because one goes to shit at one point and the other one goes to shit at a different point, and then between the 2 of them, you should be able
to figure it out.
I'm honestly surprised that this guy, as much as allegedly as much as he is maybe not on the up and up,
Mm-hmm.
behind the guy that's behind this company, I am surprised he didn't try to launch his own streaming service.
There is. I looked it up. $8 a month through their website. You get access to all these movies.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
It's not Pureflix. It's its
No,
own streaming
it's
service.
feature films for families on their website. You can
Holy
pay
crap.
$8 a month and you get access to all of them. So.
Somebody that is a subscriber to this, send Lindsay $16 and I will commit to coming onto this channel and watching as many of these programs as possible.
Oh yeah, no, I'm definitely down for that. Oh,
but
my
I'm not
God.
paying good money to do it.
No.
But if somebody will PayPal Lindsay $16,
$16.
yeah, or Venmo or whatever she's got set up, we will do it. And we'll do live commentary tracks for the entire
God.
Feature Films for Families archive.
Their entire library.
How many films could it possibly be?
I don't know. Someone had a list. I gotta see how many there are. There's gotta be at least 20.
Oh, we could do that. Come on. At Binge Movies,
Feature films for family.
you come on and you talk about 5 films at a time with me all the time, so we could knock out these. We've already covered one of them.
Oh, there's a bunch of things on here. There's Address Unknown, Behind the Waterfall, the Buttercream Gang, The Ghosts of Dickens Past, The Forgotten Attic, which was made in 2002.
Wow.
Friendships Field, In Your Wildest Dreams.
That's it. There.
Jumping for Joy, No More Baths. I've seen that one.
There's one with a horse.
The Penny Promise.
I've got something with a horse over there.
Rigoletto.
Rigoletto, I've seen, yes. Yeah.
Split Infinity. Is that where the girl goes back to like the 1920s and meets her grandfather or some shit?
I feel like Rigoletto is like a Phantom of the Menace or Beauty. I think Rigoletto is the story that inspired Beauty and the Beast, maybe?
Oh, yeah. No, yeah.
One of the two.
I mean,
Yeah.
Split Infinity.
Oh,
Sorry.
no, I don't know. Yeah.
Who Gets the House?
That's a divorce movie.
I think I think I have that. I think I have that.
You're not confusing that with Hider in the House.
No, I have, but I do have that one.
I know you do.
I would love to if Gary Busey would do a feature films for families.
He's done Quigley.
He did do Quigley.
Yeah. I think we hook him up with the feature films for families, folks. We start a franchise.
Yeah.
You know what? Gary Busey as the grown-up Scott from the Buttercream Gang.
He's just
put Gary
He's
Busey
just-
in a Butter Gang soft reboot.
He's just a crazed Gary Busey with just wild eyes and screaming
Yeah, but
at
he's
everybody.
playing. Yeah, but he's playing a child in a soft reboot of the Buttercream Gang.
So what do I do?
God, you're sick. You're sick.
Why?
You won't trust and believe in me.
Eric Roberts, Gary Busey,
Tom
we have the-
Sizemore or something like
Tom
that.
Sizemore. That's our new. Yeah, Tom Sizemore's Lanny.
Yes.
Who the hell did I just say? Who's the other one?
Eric Roberts.
Eric Roberts, I guess, is Eldon. Right?
Or Michael Madsen.
Yeah, right. And then Gary Busey is Scott.
Oh my God.
I want this.
So do I. I'll write that one. I'm sure he'd be down for it. We'd only need him on set for like a day. We could shoot all of his scenes like in an office.
Do it through Zoom, I think. Yeah.
Oh, probably.
Yeah. I'm guessing. Let's find the trademark for who has the trademark for Buttercream Gang and see if it's still active. And if not, let's buy it.
We should. We need to continue
Then
the series.
we could call ourselves the Buttercream Gang. Jason from Binge Movies, Lindsay Washburn from YouTube, the Buttercream Gang.
The Buttercream Gang.
Yeah. For the record, as we conclude here, folks, I want you to know that this event for this my first appearance was titled by Lindsay Washburn as the Buttercream Dream.
The Buttercream Dream, yes.
So
and it came true. It came true.
My dream came true. So yeah, it was like the Buttercream Dream. I was like,
Buttercream Dream. Oh
okay.
my God, that
Yeah,
works.
Yep.
Oh man, but yeah, thank you so much for coming on and doing this. It was because I mean I've done like 3 things on your side of the fence, so I'm I need to get you on my channel. We'll have some fun. But for the people watching, where can they find you and Binge Movies?
Binge Movies is available on all of your favorite podcast platforms. Anywhere where you find good podcasts, there we are as well. We're also available on Patreon, patreon.com/binge movies. You get access to all kinds of content, behind the scenes stuff, series, like sub-series shows that aren't on the main feed. You get access to that. There's different tiers, different levels of support, all the way from video club member all the way to assistant manager. Our elite patron tier has sold out, so no more of those, but you can join. I like to put it like this: people, I don't want to say who they are, but you know who they are if you've been following the news. They've been trying to kill the home video revolution. At Binge Movies, we're bringing it back. We are keeping the home video revolution alive, and we want you to join our revolution. So just subscribe and leave us a 5-star review on Apple Podcast, all the great stuff that podcasters want you to do for them. We'd love to have you. We have a growing community of weirdo listeners who would love to talk to you about movies. And that's what that's what I would say. Binge Movies is not your Blockbuster. It's not your Hollywood Video. It's not your family video. It is the weird movie store in that bad part of town on that weird corner that you're too scared to go into.
And the creepy guy sitting at the front counter.
That's me. I'm the creepy guy at the front counter who's just going to talk to you for hours about his opinions about movies with great guests who are also creepy, like Lindsay Washburn.
Very much so.
The living dead girl,
yes.
Lindsay Washburn. It is remarkable how much you look like her from that video.
Oh my God.
It's staggering.
and especially go check out our episode we did on the Predator franchise.
Yes.
With Prey just coming out. It's a good refresher of the entire series, the entire franchise, so you don't have to go back and watch some of those dog shit movies. Some of them are pretty dog shit.
Yeah, that's the thing that we do on Binge Movies, as Lindsay, we look at typically 5 films, sometimes more, but typically 5 films, and we go through each of them in detail, reviewing them, but then also we're ranking them to try to determine which one is not just the best, but most worthy of preservation. And then guests like you get to contribute to something called the guest list. Then I have my short list. At the end of the year, we have at the end of the season, we have something called Last Movie Standing, where 2 guest film critics, film reviewers, such as yourself, kind of have a friendly debate about it. And then our listeners decide which movie will be added to the vault, which existed long before Quentin Tarantino stole it recently. We're trying to create what we call people's canon, right? Well, there's all of these canons, the AFI and all these different groups, and that want to tell you what the best movies are. Yeah. And we want the people to decide for themselves what the best movies are. So we cover everything
all kinds
on the
of
channel.
Shit.
We've covered everything from Canon films to Citizen Kane to I say this, it's become cliche at this point, but we cover everything from the Francois Truffauts to the Tommy Wiseaus and the Neil Breens in between. We cover it all of it. So if it's the good, the bad, the ugly, because just because it's bad or just because it's a genre movie or an exploitation film doesn't mean it's not worthy of preservation.
Exactly.
So, yep.
You're doing the Lord's work, just like the Buttercream Gang.
I'm a Buttercreamer.
You are.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much once again for coming on. I really, really appreciate it. And thank everyone out there for watching. Even if you've never seen the Buttercream Gang, I hope you followed along with our discussion. We were kind of up and down a couple times, but I think we circled around and tied a nice bow on it.
That's my fault. I apologize.
Oh no, it was great. We let the conversation goes where we let it flow naturally here. So, like I said, thanks for joining us. Thanks for joining us, and we'll see you on the next episode of I Love This Movie.
You got the right one, baby.